Joining me now to discuss BTC price and other Bitcoin news is our weekend review panel. We've got CoinDesk managing editor of technology, Christie Harkin in Toronto, and managing editor of markets, Brad Keoun in Austin. Welcome, Brad and Christie. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
All right, let's kick things off with you, Brad, in the markets. So where are you seeing support and resistance? Where's Bitcoin headed?
Well, you know, we've broken. I think previously we had a 7-day losing streak, and then this week we kind of broke that. I think we're now at around 24,300. At this time last year, about last week, around 23,300. So I mean, we've come up a little bit, but not that much. People are probably, you know, again, kind of like I was saying last week, people are probably happy to just see some stabilization here after the big slide earlier this year. And of course, you know, people talking about Ethereum, honestly, is like the big thing that people are talking about with the merge coming up and this latest crypto rally. You know, I mean, people pointing to various factors, you know, Bitcoin obviously kind of driven more of a macro asset driven by inflation and the Federal Reserve and Ether.
Yeah, Brad, Ether has been on a rally, and I wonder what impact that has been having on Bitcoin dominance.
Well, Bitcoin dominance has been coming down because everything else has been rallying. I mean, obviously, you know, Bitcoin has come up a little bit as we're saying, but you know, Ether is up 100% in the past month. So, you know, we've seen a much faster, bigger recovery in some of the altcoins and led by Ether and some of the other sort of riskier stuff that sometimes just trades like a levered play on Bitcoin, honestly. But, you know, in terms of support, resistance, you know, people are saying this 24,000 level where we are kind of right now is a key point. People have seen that as kind of a price to beat, a resistance. And if we can beat that, we'll maybe head towards 26, 27, 28, high 20s. And we haven't really seen that for a while. So that would be quite a change in the tone of the market. But, you know, I would say all things being equal, probably people seeing the market kind of flat to up a little bit, maybe.
It's interesting you say that because we have seen bullish news. I mean, there was a slower inflation print on the CPI index, and BlackRock announced their partnership for Coinbase, which could be very bullish for Bitcoin.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think if our old colleague Galen Moore were here, he would remind us that a lot of Bitcoin's, you know, price gains are driven by institutional adoption. It's just like the byword. And you know, we haven't really seen that much for a while. So the BlackRock news definitely bullish. You know, I mean, maybe it's not a surprise if everybody kind of knew, oh, yeah. It's not a secret that Bitcoin is, you know, crypto. People see that as like a hot asset. You know, it's the future, and people want to invest in that. And just there hasn't been an easy way. And so BlackRock's going to make it easier for a lot more institutional clients. But that's definitely a bullish sign. You know, probably a lot of also countervailing forces. You know, there's all sorts of negative forces also on the regulatory stuff and just FUD and, you know, maybe just the market itself just needs a little more time to shake out before it starts going up again.
Let's switch topics and talk about something that has been gathering headlines throughout the week, and that's Tornado Cash. A 29-year-old suspected Tornado Cash developer was arrested in the Netherlands today. He's been identified as Alexei Hertze by his wife, according to The Block, and she insists he's done nothing illegal. It's surprising that he's being arrested for developing a protocol. Christie, I want to have you weigh in here.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I think that a lot of people are jumping on the idea of him being arrested for developing a protocol, which is entirely possibly part of, you know, it is part of the deal. This is code that people have used to launder money, supposedly. But I think that the more I don't know, the more interesting, potentially more verifiable or legally problematic part for him is the suspicion that he and persons behind this organization, I guess Tornado Cash, have made large-scale profits from those transactions. And I think that is probably more where they would get him as opposed to just writing the code. If writing the code is indeed the problem, why he was, and the reason he was been arrested, that is a chilling thing for all developers to consider who might be involved in writing, just strictly writing code for open source code that anybody can use in whatever way that they want, whether that be for perfectly legitimate reasons, privacy protecting reasons, or because they're trying to hide nefarious actions. And I think that that is going to be a distinction that all developers are going to want to keep an eye on. If there's an idea of centralization where people are actually holding funds and helping to launder them, which is what we've seen in the past with some mixing services, then yeah, that does put the operators in legal jeopardy. If they are profiting from the use of the code in some way, even if it's decentralized, then again, that can be seen as a way of putting yourself in legal jeopardy. But by and large, developers and the open source community are saying, you know, if it's simply because he wrote code that people use, that is highly problematic. And that's not just problematic for Tornado Cash. That's a problem for any developer working on any privacy protocol, including anything on Bitcoin.
Yeah, there's certainly more details that we'll cover as they develop. I want to bring up a tweet by a long-tenured Bitcoin core developer, Matt Carlo, who is pretty upset by these events. This is completely and totally unacceptable, he says. It needs to be fought in court and lobbies in Brussels and ultimately in ads for voters. It's time to take back the mantle of privacy. Privacy isn't evil. It's critical for everyday people. What are your thoughts, Christie?
Yeah, that is something that, you know, we've been banging a drum about for a long time, and I know we've talked about on this show as well, and that many of our CoinDesk reporters have written on. And the main thing to understand, yes, privacy isn't evil, and it is critical for everyday people in many different ways. One of the things about blockchains that people forget sometimes is how unbelievably transparent they are. If I go to, say, Starbucks and I buy a coffee and I use my debit card, I don't expect that the barista is going to then be able to look at the information from my debit card and go and investigate my bank account and be able to see how much money I have and where I spent my last, 100, 150, 2,000 transactions. We have a reasonable expectation of privacy when we make a purchase like that. Well, if I pay with my Bitcoin wallet or any crypto wallet that's connected to the blockchain like that, anybody can just take that address and look and, with a little bit of blockchain know-how, find out how much crypto I have in my wallet and where it came from. And that's an awful lot of information to give up just to go buy some coffee with a crypto out of a crypto wallet. So when we want privacy for things that we already have privacy for in the first place. And so not every person who wants to keep their financial transactions private are doing it because they're doing something wrong. They're doing it because we all have a certain level of privacy that we think that we're entitled to and should be able to enjoy. So I think that there's going to be a line that needs to be drawn. And I think that developers who are working on privacy implementations are only really doing the things that we already expect to be done in the everyday world. Can it be abused? Of course, everything can be abused. Cash can be abused. It's very hard to trace cash. But we're not outlawing cash yet. So I don't know.
Right. I think that was another point. Visa, MasterCard, banks, and other traditional financial companies have been known to be used by criminals and sanctioned individuals. Like, where are the rest there? And should the US dollar be banned? Yeah, that hasn't happened. So